In recent years, companies have been giving a lot of attention to diversity and inclusion. Reports suggest that promoting diversity and inclusion not only help the companies to progress financially, but also help them in acquiring and retaining employee talent. Hello and welcome. This is Himanshi Tiwari, and you are watching ETHR World. To talk more on DNI, today we have a very special guest with us, Smita Pillai, Chief Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Officer at Regeneron.
Doing very well, Himanshi, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so Smita, let's start with some basics. So can you please help our viewers understand why diversity and inclusion matters for companies and what is the scope of workplace diversity in the current scenario?
Sure. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is important for any company that wants to thrive in the future. So there are three ways that I look at this very simply. Number one is your workplace, your workforce. Your workforce is getting increasingly diverse. 50% of your global workforce is millennials, 25% Gen Z. These are, I say, not children, but young adults born after the year 2000. So 75% of the global workforce is either Gen Z or millennials. And even if we look at just that single dimension of diversity, which is generational diversity, that is, we have now 5 generations in the workforce. So number one, your workforce diversity matters. You want to make sure you're including everyone in your business, and therefore your business will thrive. The number two reason why DEI matters for companies is your customers. Whether you are a healthcare company like Regeneron, focusing on patients, or you are a customer-facing company, that base is increasingly diverse. Women make most of the decisions. Millennials, again, Gen Z, are getting into the workforce and therefore having the buying capacity. And the third element that I would say why DEI matters is society. Any public limited company now is facing increasing demands from stakeholders to talk about and focus on DEI. So with these three dimensions in mind, any public limited company and any company that really wants to thrive has to focus on DEI.
I want to know that when you started working as Chief DEI Officer at Regeneron, so what was the first thing that came to your mind in terms of inclusion?
Yeah, it's a great question. And speaking a bit about Regeneron, this is the fastest growing biotech company in the world. And it's a company, if you think about, completely rooted in science. And if you think about the workforce here at Regeneron, this is probably one of the most intellectual workforce that I've worked with in my career, at least. And science is a place where innovation matters, inclusion matters. And inclusion is what leads to innovation. In Regeneron, we have 100 plus countries represented, even though we are based in the US, 100 plus countries represented. So if you truly think about what diversity means for people who are coming from 100 plus different countries, it really is not single dimensional. And therefore, inclusion needs to be truly intersectional and making sure that people from all different backgrounds, whether it's race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, disability, both visible and invisible, and cultural diversity, all of that is included. So that was one of my first instincts as I walked into this company of this high intellect individuals, that how do you make sure that these high intellect individuals who perform based on what I call creative aberration, that's colliding of ideas, right? That is what creates innovation. How do you create inclusion? Because often people think about inclusion as consensus, and it's not. Inclusion does not mean consensus. Inclusion means respectful creative aberration. So that was one of the first things that I kept in mind as I was defining inclusion at Regeneron.
Okay. So, Smita, how challenging has it been for you to up the graph of inclusion at your workplace? And I mean, what initiatives have you taken to achieve a decent diversity ratio at the workplace?
This is a difficult question for not just for me, but anyone across the globe who's trying to push DEI across different companies. And not because there is not good intentions, but because pushing and advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion requires consistent work across all levels of the organization. It's not a program on unconscious bias that you can slap on a company and say, okay, 90% of my workforce is done unconscious bias, and therefore we are inclusive, right? It's not as simple as that. Like I said, DEI takes consistent effort, and it is leader led. So lots of challenges, not just here, but across the globe for professionals like me. But one thing that really works is when we make DEI a leader-led initiative, meaning DEI is not led by HR, it's not pushed through by, of course, it's supported by HR, of course, it's supported by people like me behind the scenes, but I am not the face of DEI. Employees are very smart. Employees know when it is talk versus walk, right? Are you walking the talk? And that is very important. So at Regeneron, we really are committed to DEI and we take this very seriously. Again, like I said, the concept is this is important and it makes us a better workplace, which will lead to better science, which is very important to the core of the company. And that will lead to better world, which is what we believe in, doing well by doing good. That's the motto of the company.
Hiring is also one of the cardinal roles for the human resource department. So, how do you manage to keep away the unconscious bias during the process, and how do you actually ensure the same within the lower levels of the HR hierarchy in your organization?
Yeah, again, I think that's a very good point and good question. This is the entry point of the workforce into the company, right? Oftentimes, companies have job descriptions that often does not encourage people from different backgrounds to apply. So, starting with how you're looking at your job description. So, for example, we use an AI-based technology that reviews all of our job description and gives us a score on inclusion that says this job description, if it goes out as is 60% inclusive. And if you want to increase it to 90, 94% inclusive level or 99% inclusive level, change these certain words, right? Change the way you're describing certain elements of what is required to be successful in the job. And that's something that we use just at the onset of writing the job description. Once the job is posted, as the applicant flows come through, again, there are pockets of the organization that companies try blind resumes, which is blinding out the names and backgrounds so that the bias is removed from that. Once the candidates come through the system, it is very important that they have an inclusive hiring experience. And that can only be possible if, on the other side, the person who's interviewing them is also a good, diverse mix of people who are interviewing. Because different people perceive the same person or the same situation very differently. So having a diversity of not only the candidate slate, but also the interviewer slate really matters because, again, different perspectives matter. So across, starting from job description to posting to screening to every step of the interview process, again, like I said, it's consistent work. It's not one and done program. And to your question about making sure HR all the way down to the entry level understands why DEI is important, that starts with transparency of data. That starts with education on what DEI is and why it matters. And again, consistently engaging every level of the organization to say this is important.
Okay, so do you think there is any specific segment of the society that has still to, that is still to get its due at workplace? And I mean, how do you think a more welcoming environment could be created for them by organizations?
Yeah, there are, I mean, even if you look at just pure gender diversity, right? The latest report from the Economic Forum said about it'll take about 200 years, and you must have read it, 200 years to reach gender parity. So even if you take that single dimensional approach, which is around gender, that in itself is a long gap here when we're talking about that. And again, depending on which country you're talking about diversity, the definition differs extensively, whether it's LGBTQ inclusion, disability, for example. It often falls lowest in the discussion point about diversity. But 1 in 5 work people in the global workforce have some form of disability, and that's a huge number if you think about it. And people don't feel comfortable disclosing their disability. Number one is raising awareness of what are the different dimensions of diversity and then making an effort to include these folks, right? So in US, for example, race is a contentious issue. And it's a very important issue given the history of this country that we must acknowledge that race is an issue that workforce and companies need to acknowledge in terms of inclusion. Your second question about how can companies create an inclusive environment, again, consistent work. Often we tend to fall on what we know, and what we know is what is like us, and what we like is we like, there is something called affinity bias. So we like people like us because it's easy to work with people like us. What is difficult is to work with people who are not like us, whether it's behavioral diversity, cultural diversity, ethnic diversity, gender diversity, disability. And that takes effort, right? So that is where we have to, again, going back to that leader led model, leaders need to consistently acknowledge that diversity is not easy. If it was easy, it would have been solved many, many years ago. So this is where we talk to leaders across all levels of the organization, because leaders hold the door to inclusion. You can either open the door and welcome people in, or leave it shut and not even realize the door is shut and you're leaving people in.
So can you, please give us insights about some of the policies that you have formulated on diversity and inclusion?
Yes, and this goes back to several, 2 decades plus of experience of me working in global companies. In one of the companies that I worked with, we had a pretty good maternity leave policy. And then we said, maternity leave does not seem very inclusive. We should actually make it parental leave, because now families are becoming very, very diverse, right? So a dad could take a leave, two dads could take leaves, two moms could take leaves. And it doesn't have to be just your biological child, it could be adopted. So the child could be adopted, and therefore we extended that maternity leave. It took a while for us, but we extended maternity leave from 12 weeks to parental leave of 20 weeks. And then we went one step further and we created an entire launched a campaign where we said, we destigmatized men taking leave for their newborn and new additions in the family. And we brought in some of our senior male leaders and up and coming male leaders as role models to say, hey, I have a new addition in my family, whether it's adopted or it's your biological child. I have a new addition and I'm a proud dad and I'm going to take 20 weeks off. And that really, really changed the game, because oftentimes what we saw was, the policy is take parental leave, but mostly people who take parental leave are women. And then comes the stigma of taking the leave and then coming back and trying to find your footing. And equalizing that to say that men and women equally are responsible, both at home and at work. And if you take time off, it can be well planned and you can have someone else to backfill you. That really equalized the playing field, if you will, for men and women in the workforce. And that's one of the policies I'm quite proud of.
How do you measure the performance and success of your DNI initiatives? I mean, how do you build up business case for a greater allocation in the DNI budget?
Yeah. Measuring success for DEI must be closely linked to how you're measuring the success of your business, right? So workforce diversity is a simple and easy way to measure success, but oftentimes very limiting, because workforce diversity often only measures what you can track from an HR point of view, which is race and gender, oftentimes, perhaps LGBTQ status, depending on which country, or disability or veteran status. So while that is good, that is not enough. We really need to take it one step forward and measure equity. Is there equity in your processes? Are you equitable when you're thinking about, to your earlier question about hiring, retention, advancement of talent, promotion of talent, pay equity? Are you measuring equity across the board? And then one step further in terms of inclusion, right? So you could have equitable processes and pretty decent representation from a diversity point of view, but do people really feel like they belong? Do they feel like they can voice their opinion, have the psychological safety to challenge certain, norms or opinions which have been established in the company? And that's the measure of inclusion. That's not easy to measure, but as you progress in the evolution of DEI, you could create an inclusion index where you could ask your employees through various different channels and different ways, how do they feel about inclusion in the company? And you could have an inclusion index by which you can create a healthy competition amongst different functions to say, hey, this function in R&D is more inclusive than this function in, say, commercial or marketing. And what can we do to tweak how we are behaving in day to day so that we can improve inclusion? So I truly think when we're thinking about measuring DEI, you've got to measure the D, E, and I. And then you've got to take one big step forward and say, why? Why does it matter? Why does DEI matter? And that's where you start measuring innovation as a result of inclusion. What are the ideas? How are companies saving costs because they have diverse employees? How are companies improving new ideas and improving innovation because they have diverse employees? So that's kind of taking it all the way to the next level to say the so what of DEI. So it's a great question, and it's an ongoing journey for us as DEI professionals. And going to the next question about asking for resources, what I've seen in my career is DEI often is run by these really passionate individuals who want to volunteer their hours and efforts, and which is fantastic. But like any other business focus area, unless you put resources and energy and time behind the focus area, you wouldn't see substantial and consistent progress. So for DEI to be successful, business leaders need to acknowledge this is a business imperative and you need to put resources behind it. And like any other business case, you've got to make the case that, like I said, when you measure DEI and you show the impact, business leaders pay attention and say, wow, this is good for my business. And therefore, I'm going to put people, money, resources behind it.
Yeah. So, well, thanks, Smita, for having this wonderful conversation with us. Thanks for taking some time for us and joining in this conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. And thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thanks for watching EDHR World. Let's stay connected for more such topics in future.